Your top 10 decks for post-December 2024 ban list. You guys smash the crap out of that subscribe button so you guys can still talk about Fire Kings out here. So, Fire King's where we're going to start here, and I got to tell you, even losing OSS, I've seen a couple people talking about, hey, I think Fire King still is a viable deck. Now, how viable this is going to be, it might actually push this down into the rogue category, but I know a few people are really holding on for dear love out here, as they want this deck to still be good, because you spent all those money on all those Ukalonyxes, and actually losing OSS, which was that huge bridge to allowing all these fire decks to function. A little bit rough out here. Konami chose not to go after Wanted or anything like that, but instead chose to take the OSS problem out back and actually put it down, which I guess is fine, but I'm going to leave Fire King here just on the off chance that, hey, maybe we can still go through some of these lines of play, and maybe we'll still be able to make these punishing, big effects on our opponent to punish them. Labyrinth. Now, hypothetically, Labyrinth in the OCG showed us that they could have at least an okay matchup against Riseal. That's kind of why I'm still leaving it here. I'm waiting for Labyrinth players to try to develop or figure out, hey, if we're able to loop Dimensional Barrier against our opponent, maybe we can, fundamentally play the game. And I think that's where probably we need to start is, finding a way to consistently get that loop going. Because Labyrinth does have some consistency issues, and a lot of people aren't really looking at Labyrinth right now. That's why it's kind of fallen off at the moment. There's so many better decks that people want to just kind of throw around right now that why look at Labyrinth, when you can play waifus or rank for the deck. Makes sense, but I actually have hope for Labyrinth as this meta challenger out here, just because it's, in my personal opinion, in a really gosh darn cool position to try to overcome the meta. Just gotta beat Malice first. Memento. So Shifter has supposedly started to roll off into the sunset out here. Shifter kind of sunsets itself because Malice is the big scary deck in the room. Oh wait, Ritual Beast is still a deck too. I think Memento is very, very strong. We just actually started to see recently in the OCG that Memento has started to have a major uptick in play. I don't know if people just kind of started to figure out, hey, maybe being able to go through these combo lines, get to these interruptions with combined creation and this big 5k, even like 5 possible negates on some of the interactions. Maybe that's enough. But the TCG is also playing Desires, and we're massively hand-trapped out of our minds. So, maybe that's the real reason why. But I'm still leaving Memento on this list because I think that this deck still has potential. Like, truly and honestly, unless Shifter comes back, and then, oof. Ritual Beast. Oh, so this is the one deck in the room that I think actually wants to see Shifter in its hands. And of course, this deck is famously dubbed the Protoss Turbo deck. Being able to constantly roll Protoss and punish your opponent, locking them every single turn. Famously declaring fire, I think, was the thing that this deck was able to do best. And if you can lock your opponent out of playing their deck consistently, you are going to do very, very, very well right now. My only major takeaways are you lose to giving your opponent a bunch of life points off of a Ghost Mourner, which is hilarious. Your turns take an eternity to develop. And of course, with that, setup time, it doesn't feel like it's worth playing. You've also got a lot of effect management, and I don't think it's worth it. There's a lot simpler decks to play, and I'm not hating on the idea that you can play this, but simpler is better. Kashtira. So we're back to the mid-range control options out here. Now, keep in mind, you've also got Kashtira Fiendsmith running around as well. That build was really good 2 YCSs ago. Things have kind of changed a little bit. I've noticed a pretty big decline in that build. But pure Kashtira and even Riseal Kashtira were 2 things that I've fairly recently seen out here. That's because, you're using Fenrir to kind of control your opponent. You're trying to develop all this. And even, with the Fiendsmith stuff, the Desiree gives you this strong boss monster to put that pressure on your opponent so you can just try to win the game right then and there, while using the Kashtira stuff to be the mid-range control, being able to get those cards out of your opponent's extra deck with Unicorn these are all fine and acceptable methods to play. I feel like the deck is too slow. Like, your opponent board breaks you, you're done. Speaking of, interesting, Yubel. So, Yubel lost Phantom of Yubel, which was its recycle piece. But Konami gave the deck back 2 recycle pieces, which were the opening of the Spirit Gates, which I think was a fine trade-off, in my opinion. I think Konami's logic here was, honestly, the recycle ability that Phantom gave you, plus the negate, was really, really stupid. Plus, you just toss a random Phantom at making a Brutus. No, you shouldn't be allowed to make 2-3 Phantoms in a turn. You have this unique resource. You shouldn't be able to go, oh, this is an Exceed material, I can put it up as a negate, I can use a recyclability. That's too much for one card to be able to do. I do think that, Yubel is already in a fine spot. We really didn't need to do this, if you want my honest opinion. The deck's going to have a lot of issues going forward, but this was what Konami deemed most fitting. Fiendsmith. So, the pure incarnation of Fiendsmith. What package do you want to throw in this deck? What is your flavor of this? Because Fiendsmith, with like the 23, 26 hand traps, was discussed again. All right, post-ban list, a few people were like, hey, is this still viable? I think the Riseal the Riseal Fiendsmith build is by far the best combination, but this is for the pure build out here. For that incarnation that you're just like, hey, we can play, as many hand traps as we want. We can Desiree set up, we have the Fiendsmith in Paradise. If we hard draw it, it's a board wipe. You have all of these stupid interactions that you're able to get with Fiendsmith as a whole that I think, yes, going forward, gonna be absolutely fine. Nothing's gonna change with this. It's gonna be a top 5 contender for sure in pretty much any variant it's gonna be in. Malice! Oh, hi! Hi, Cyber's Pile. How are you? So, even though Malice doesn't really feel like it has the crazy representation that it should out here, a lot of people just want to play this deck because it's new, it's fresh, and it's waifus. Alright, the fact that we have all of these cool little things coming together. The waifu tax is pretty interesting in this game. That's why you saw some of these cards hitting astronomical levels as of fairly recent. And I tell you, it's a little bit rough out here. But even though Malice should be one of the top decks right now, you might have some issues fighting off some of the other rogue challengers out here. But I think just the boards that this deck sets up in maybe not 12, 15 round tournaments, but on the regional circuit, I think that this deck will have a pretty decent time smashing down X1, X2 all day long. Alright, it just does too much. Riseal Fiendsmith. So this is the crazy hybrid that fairly recently developed out of the TCG. The fact that Ice doesn't lock you on normal summon and special summons a friend that gets you another search, and then you can overlay into Exciton Knight and then go full Fiendsmith combo, is so freaking hilarious to me. Exciton Knight was somebody looked at that card and said, this is it. This is how we're going to do this. Are we able? Yeah. One core normal summon right now has turned an entire old engine into a new deck. And it really proved itself out of the YCS. This deck has lost nothing, and I think you're going to have 2 houses of variations for this. You are going to have the Fiendsmith variant, which a lot of people are going to look at. You're going to have some very, very, very stupidly strong interactions with this. But you've also got to give it up for your, twin over here, which is Pure Riseal. I think Pure Riseal and Riseal Fiendsmith will be the 2 decks going neck and neck right now. I do think that Pure Riseal is an extremely good deck. You can fill out that extra space with more hand traps, and necessarily your engine doesn't really get hurt all that much by bulked down by Fiendsmith cards. But that's kind of the same thing we've seen with like the Riseal Kashtira package. Sometimes you'll just see one engine or the other. You won't have both engines being there to help you out. And that's a little bit disappointing to see, but at least with the Pure Riseal build, if you get enough gas, you're off to the races, at least in my opinion. So those are what I'm personally thinking are going to be the top 10 decks for this format. So please, leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later today, guys.
Patrons! Thank you!
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.